to all Falcons on a Wednesday morning. That's 10 a.m. here in the ATL. And for my friend Nick Kendall and co-host, it is 7 a.m. out in Seattle. My name is Scott Kennedy. This is Nick, and we're here to talk a little bit of Falcons. We're here to talk a little bit of draft, a little bit of trade deadline, some Carolina Panthers. Before we get started, go Braves. Want to know? I was a good win in Houston yesterday. I know Nick probably is cheering harder than I am right now because jaded Falcons fan, Atlanta sports fan. It's hard. It's just hard to cheer too much, but it's actually pretty good when you're the underdog and the expectations are low, and then you can enjoy it a little bit more. It's when when they get up 3-0 or 3-1, you start puckering up just a little bit. So if you're coming into the chat, please hit that like, subscribe, and share button. Those are a big help to us. And we've got some folks coming in already. Dave, Peter coming in from Cambodia. So we are international. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well. Today is my anniversary with my wife.
Nice.
So that's
how many is this?
2 years.
2, so okay.
We haven't been married that long. We've been together for a long
time. You're young.
Time. Yeah, true. So she actually had a big Charlie Fox shot at the airport the other day where like the computers crashed. So she was stuck in Denver airport for 16 hours. But she's got her flight delayed and she's coming back today from Iowa. So I'm not alone anymore on the anniversary. So that's great.
Well, good.
Doing well. And ready for a really good week of college football. The Big Ten has a great slate this week.
Well, I, going to an SEC school and growing up in the South, I got married on a Sunday because I got married in the fall. I'm like, well, I can't get married on a Saturday in the fall in the South. I never, ever once considered anniversaries, not once. And September 3rd is like opening weekend for football every year. So my first 10 years, it mattered. Now I don't really care so much. Now it doesn't bother me so much. So that I miss, an opening weekend of football or whatnot. So Peter says happy anniversary. Appreciate that.
You, Peter.
So some of the things I want to get into a little bit today. I want to talk a little bit about that Miami Dolphins game. The Falcons evening their record to 3-3. Kyle Pitts. We can gush over him for a little bit, but Dion Jones was just named NFC Defensive Player of the Week, so we can get into that a little bit. I want to talk a little Jason Spriggs at right tackle. I want to get into a little bit of Sam Darnold and the Carolina Panthers and that Carolina Panthers defense, get into a prediction, and I also want to ask a question, so we're going to have to hustle through these. I also want to ask the question, should the Falcons trade Calvin Ridley? Yeah. When I title it, I probably won't have the balls to say, should they trade him? And I'll probably say, should they consider it? Well, yes, you should consider everything.
Yeah.
But for the right move, what would it take for you to say yes? What would it take for you to say yes for Calvin Ridley? And we'll get into the pros and cons and whys. On the surface, you're like, no, you shouldn't trade Calvin Ridley. He's one of your best players. But there's more to it than that. So I want to get into that a little bit. But first off, Miami Dolphins. If the week before was the coming out party for Kyle Pitts, it's too early for a coronation. But does this put him in line as he really is going to be the next big thing in the NFL?
Maybe not the next big thing with how Jamar Chase is playing right now as well. But Kyle Pitts is right there behind him, and as the tight end position, although he's been using more split looks. Going for is he a tight end? Is he a wide receiver? Who the hell cares? Get him the ball. No, he looks for real. He's making some big time plays, and what did he finish with?
163 on seven catches.
Yeah, there was that one-handed one down the sideline. I'm sure everybody saw, but there's also a few slants on tough plays where he's coming down with it as well. So you got yourself an alpha pivot man, I guess, for that offense that you just go to every time, and he looks. He looks legit. A lot of hand wringing for that 4th overall pick, quarterback, offensive tackle, et cetera, et cetera. It looks like you got yourself a good player. And that's the most important thing when you're picking that high.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not going to go back and, say, oh yeah, I thought that was going to be the pick. Cause it wasn't. My first choice was trade back. My second choice was, and this is based on where the Falcons were. My second choice was quarterback. And my third choice was probably Penei Sewell, offensive tackle.
Yep.
Fourth choice would have been trade back. So I wasn't high on the Kyle Pitts, but to be fair, most of that discussion was when I thought Julio Jones was still going to be on this team and healthy.
Yeah.
So when I found out Julio Jones was going to be gone, I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. You're going to go get that long-term Julio Jones replacement. not that I was gonna, not that I said, oh, you don't want this guy, but now I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm good with this now. This is a good pick. If you can't trade back and pick up, 3 first-round draft picks.
Yeah.
And he's certainly living up. And what's crazy to me, the kid just turned 21 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, he's a fawn out there, right? Baby deer. Not as far as his coordination, but just so young. Also, it is very fortunate for the Falcons. They are in a position where they have a quarterback who can take advantage of him. So shout out to Matt Ryan. I think he's been playing pretty good ball as well, mostly.
And I think that's the other gamble you take when you don't take a quarterback of the future. When you're coming off a 4-12 season, you got a 36-year-old quarterback who's getting the hell beat out of him because your offensive line is bad and your defense can't stop anybody. You're like, all right, we need to build for the future. But the gamble on that is, can you get another 4 or 5 years out of Matt Ryan? And right now, I think the last 3 games, maybe even 4 games since that Tampa Bay game, I think he's the highest rated quarterback in the league.
I was looking at that graphics I like to use, the CPOE and EPA per play, and I don't know if Matt Ryan is the highest. I think he's top, like 2/3 in CPOE, or top third, I guess, in completion percentage over expected, but his EPA per play is super high. The only person I think that's higher, or the only guys that are higher, are Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers. So Matt Ryan's been playing amazing football. He's been super efficient, and he's been attacking vertically. So I know there is a lot about, Matt Ryan's old, the athleticism's dipped, the arm talent has dipped. He's making big time plays back there right now. So
no, you've heard me say before, he's Peyton Manning light. And that's okay. If Peyton Manning's one of the greatest ever, at the end of his career, Matt Ryan's numbers are going to be right up there with the top 5, 7 quarterbacks of all time. That doesn't necessarily mean he's one of the top 5, 7 of all time, but everything that we laud Peyton Manning for, I think you can say the same thing for Matt Ryan, just maybe not quite as much. And as Peter says, 34 is no longer old for a quarterback. He's 36, so he has turned 36 this year, which is knocking on the door. You wonder, how much, especially when you're getting beat up as much as he has, you can go from 36 to 46 in a hurry.
Yeah.
If you're not protecting your quarterback very well. NFC Defensive Player of the Week, Dion Jones. I believe 13 to 15, maybe 15 tackles. He's a little undersized, but he certainly plays big on the field, and that speed, that lateral speed, is so good. And I would really like to see him with a bigger defensive front in front of him and let him really freelance a little more.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing. Right now the Falcons look too competent to fulfill your dreams. I think your fledgling dreams that they are. But Jordan Davis from Georgia, plugging him into that defensive front and that 3-4 you're running, and letting him eat up bodies and freeing up not only Grady Jarrett, but also Dion Jones. Not sure that's going to happen with you guys. The direction you're heading right now, looking maybe like, I'm really excited for Saints Falcons. I think that's going to be a great game. Whenever that does happen down the line, that's going to be battle.
I think that's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Tune me in, baby. That's going to be a good one. That's a battle for the NFC South, second place. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay looks like an absolute juggernaut again. But yeah, no, Dion Jones looked really good. He's always going to have some limitations because of his size. You don't want him to be because I cover the Broncos, going to have to do some Broncos reference, but like Alexander Johnson, 6'5", 255, whatever the heck he is, an absolute monster. As far as size, that's not Dion Jones. You want to keep him clean. You want to let him attack rather than deconstruct blocks and have to play towards the line of scrimmage sometimes, and that means getting bigger up front. But he had a great game. Obviously, the Dolphins' offensive line is one of the worst in football. Also, I gotta say, this is just a sidebar. I know there's a lot of Broncos quarterback talk right now. Tua, not impressive to me out there in this game. I'm like, man, what am I watching here? He's not really popping.
His overall numbers, though, and I guess you run into that bad interception. It's like you can undo all the good you do by giving the ball away. But 32 of 40 with a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio should get it done when you throw four touchdowns.
Yeah, maybe upgrading him on
the timeliness of it is what you're saying. It's some of that just becomes like you can't make those mistakes.
Yeah, and I didn't see any big time throws. I thought the athleticism was. I know he's coming off that hip still, but the arm talent was just okay. He didn't really flash to me, so to speak. So now it'll be interesting to see. But Dion Jones had a heck of a game. Congrats to him being NFC Player of the Week and Defensive Player of the Week. And man, those Falcons, with what we saw early this season, you better hang on to that one, because who thought, man, after that, especially after that Eagles game where Jalen Hurts was like the most efficient quarterback of the entire season in that one game, they're starting to gel. They're starting to play a little better. This whole team is. They're like total opposite of the Broncos. I'm actually pretty confident in this Falcons team making a run with how they're playing.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with what I see, and part of the reason. And Sunny Days,
thank you.
Good morning. Appreciate you being here. And Ray coming in says, do not trade Ridley at all. I'm going to make the case, and I'm going to give you the positives and negatives. We're going to hit on that in the next few minutes. So I want to go through some of the other things a little bit because I can make a case for it that might make you think, maybe, if a right type of offer comes in. So, and we'll get to that. And he says, for who? For who? We'll get to that. Whoops, so I'm wrong one. For who? We'll get to that one. I want to hit some of the other things with Dolphins and Panthers, and then we'll finish up with Calvin Ridley. So offensive line, you mentioned, the first week the offensive line was, oh my God.
And to be fair, we've seen more from the Eagles going forward. Javon Hargrave, I don't know if there's a defensive tackle playing better than him right now.
Yeah, he's thrown a lot of guys around. It wasn't just the Falcons guys. That was baptism by fire for Drew Dahlman got some time in that game. I don't think we've seen him since, but Jalen Mayfield, this is your first NFL start. I know we practice you at right tackle, and you really haven't played much guard, but here you go. Line up against this guy. Good God.
Yeah, that's desperation. But I know I just want to say, with context of more games, that's always why I want to build a bigger sample size. But like Hargrave, there's really not much shame in looking as bad against him as he did, because he's been doing that to everyone this year.
And what was the biggest fear on the offensive line coming into this game?
Probably right tackle, Jason Spriggs.
Right tackle. It was right tackle and Jason Spriggs. And Jason Spriggs played a serviceable right tackle for a guy that's maybe only started 5 games. I think Pro Football Focus had him at about a 65. So I went and looked, and that was higher than Caleb McGarry, former first-round pick Caleb McGarry, has graded. And it was higher than Caleb McGarry has graded in all but 1 game this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll happen, but Caleb McGarry should be doing some of this. He needs to be looking over his shoulder a little bit. He's got to step it up, because I feel much more confident. I still don't feel good about the right tackle position, but I feel much more confident saying, okay, if Spriggs needs to go back in there and do a job, he can do a job. So Caleb, you got to step it up.
Yeah, and I really actually like Spriggs a good bit coming out of Indiana. A great athlete. His arms.
He's athletic as hell.
He's a really good athlete. I know that if you were gung ho, if he was in this draft class, maybe he would have had some Spencer Brown vibes, because he was that level of athlete. Never really translate. Not that level of athlete, but he was. His like mock draftable spider graph was pretty insane across the board. And he just never really got the technique down, and also never really had much anchor strength or grip strength in his blocks. But he looked okay out there at right tackle. It helps a lot even though Matt Ryan is 36, he knows how to navigate a pocket. He understands how to evade pressure, and help his offensive line, because there's a symbiotic relationship there between the offensive line and the quarterback, as much as people like to scream about the offensive line. So we got Dave coming in. Good morning, guys.
Good morning, Dave. Appreciate you being here.
But yeah, overall, I thought Spriggs had a solid game. He was going up mostly against, from what I saw, Jalen Phillips, rookie edge rusher from Miami, now playing for Miami, who hasn't impressed as much as Odafe Owe this season, but still a good talent. So I thought Spriggs did well. And when your quarterback's helping you out, you're getting the ball out, and you got a safety net like Kyle Pitts, sometimes you don't have to be perfect across the board on the offensive line.
Yeah, if you can go to just competent play at right tackle, that's an improvement. Well, all I've ever asked for myself, a business, a sports team, my kids, whatever, is just always get better. What are you doing to get better? I don't need you to be a Pro Bowl right tackle today. I just need you to keep getting better. And Spriggs played better at right tackle than the right tackles played for pretty much most of the year. That's good. That's good. He wasn't just a huge liability. So here's a name I recognize coming in on Facebook. And in fact, there's 2 SKs I recognize. That's Sean catching a fish with Grandpa Steve. So welcome in, Dad.
That's awesome.
It's all in the family. All in the family.
What is that? A bluegill?
I don't know what it was. You might have to type in and tell you exactly what it was. I don't think it was a little bass because I remember that day and it was close. They were real close to the shore in a pond up in Ohio at my family's farm. Talked about Jason Spriggs. Let's talk a little about Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Started off okay. I could just change the name to Denver Broncos here because they're on the same trajectory, 3-0, and then lose 4 straight.
Yeah.
Started off okay. You have your questions, and now he's just fallen off a cliff. I mean, Sam Darnold. He got benched. PJ Walker comes in and he's worse. So Sam Darnold back at quarterback this week? I would think so.
With the investment they made in him, you'd have to assume so, right? Like they're looking to ride out Sam Darnold this year. They made their bed. And I guess as unfortunate as the Broncos quarterback room and situation is from a long-term perspective and immediate with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock, at least they didn't trade, what was it, a 2, a 4, and a 6 to bring that guy, as well as eating a lot of salary for a quarterback that you already had on your roster and only recouping a 6. So I think the Panthers are doing a lot good on the defensive side of the ball. They have some long-term prospects that I really think is talented and very good. I mean, Brian Burns, Derek Brown, got a couple cornerbacks that are really talented there. But, I guess anchoring yourself to Sam Darnold this season and maybe even next season, right? They picked up his option.
Yeah, they're paying Teddy about 12 to quarterback Denver, and then they brought in Sam Darnold, and then they picked up his option. So they're probably playing more than anybody in the league for bad quarterback play right now.
Yeah, it's a bad situation for them. It might be. I hope it's not enough. And this is me not being a Falcons fan, but I've always been a big fan of Rule at Carolina in general. What he did at Temple and Baylor. I mean, just listening to him talk at coaching clinics and whatnot. Very, very intelligent person. And I like just everything he has to say. But if you're going to get the quarterback wrong like this, you might be out of a job this point next year. So we'll see. But Darnold's been terrible. And I guess just to show how terrible he's been, I got I can't share. Well, wait, can I share?
Put a link in private, and I'll if you've got it
right here. It's unfortunately it's one that you can't really. I think you can pull. Oh, there it goes. There's Sam Darnold on the bottom left there. So obviously
this is Sam Darnold.
Yep.
So this is quarterback efficiency, and there's Sam Darnold. I'm guessing that's bad. What's this one say right here? Jared Goff.
Yeah, not good company. Unfortunately, up here to the right, there's Teddy Bridgewater and Baker Mayfield and Davis Mills. But and the very top of the graph here, not great in the x-axis, but the y-axis, there's Matt Ryan. So this is the last 4 weeks filtering out garbage time. And you're talking about how
typically bad. if you're in a circle with Tom Brady, then you're in decent shape there. So Sam Darnold,
not good.
You know how I felt. I've made that fairly clear. I thought he was maybe a second rounder all along, and to trade 3 second rounders and take him in the top 5 is why the Jets are where the Jets are. Mm-hmm. That's just those are the kind of things that make me mad because there's a lot of money that goes into effing things up that bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, drop me 5% of that and I'll make sure this doesn't happen for you. It's not that hard.
Yeah. I mean, there is a good bit of, unfortunately, there is, and this is hard to say as an analyst, somebody who does the draft stuff, whatever. But watching this for as long as I have, and which I guess I'm not that old, but like every single year, the volume that I do, there is a good bit of luck in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
You never really know until you know. Like, obviously, in hindsight, would the Dolphins take Tua Tagovailoa over Justin Herbert? Hell no. But, sometimes you got to just take your shot.
Yeah, I was in an argument that was, and I get all worked up about these things, these online discussions and stuff, and these message boards about, and it's like these guys were all over me about this quarterback that I said he's just not good enough to play, and he was going to Auburn. My wife asked me, it's like, how many times have you been wrong on a guy that you say couldn't play? See, the ones you miss on are the ones that you overtalk, that you think are going to be really good, and they don't. Because most of the guys that you miss on are those type of guys. Like, I really like this guy. Think he's going to be really good. I was like, I've missed on maybe 2 players that I didn't think were all that good and ended up going on to be superstars. And that was from high. So, Sam Darnold, to me, he was never a guy. He was never the guy ever. That one just, I don't know. That one blew my mind a little bit. Dave's coming in, actually had 2 questions. Could this be a get well game for the Panthers? I'm very concerned about this Sunday. The Falcons aren't good enough where you cannot not be concerned. A lot of things have to go right for the Falcons to win, which leads me to his next question. Guys, please explain to the audience why Coach Pease continues to play the soft zone. Nick, I'm going to let you have a crack at this one. Why would a defensive coordinator run a soft zone given their personnel that the Falcons have on defense?
You don't believe in the horses that you have on your side of the ball to play an aggressive style of defense. Now that could be, it's probably a factor of everything. But just watching the Broncos play soft zone, they don't have the pass rush to get home right now consistently. And because of that, you have to hold your coverage longer. And if you're playing an aggressive style press, you're more likely to get burned. Maybe the Broncos should do it anyway because they're getting burned. But that's one thing. Also, if you don't think that you have the man-to-man cornerbacks, I think we've seen it a microcosm this year, earlier this season, and last season too. Ohio State loves to run a lot of cover 1 and cover 3 looks and be aggressive with their pressure and leave the cornerbacks on an island. And when you don't have 3 first-round cornerbacks, that can be an issue against other teams with good quarterbacks. And we saw Devonta Smith just kill them last year with that kind of thing because they didn't have the cornerbacks to keep up. So you have to have the personnel, the dudes, to be able to go out there and not play the soft zone right now, given how the league is trending towards these explosive plays, and these explosive plays are backbreakers.
Pressure defense is risky defense. Pressure defense is saying, I'm going to force the tempo. A soft zone says, I'm going to count on you to make a mistake. Yeah. I'm going to think that you can't go 8 plays down the field, convert your third downs without making a turnover, a holding penalty, and putting yourself in a bad situation. And you run a softer zone, like Nick is saying, because you don't trust the guys you have. You know, I got TJ Green out there in coverage. I don't want him by himself out there. I've got 2 journeymen at safety. I need them back a little bit. I can't necessarily man up closely because I'm not getting any pass rush right now because I got Steven Means and Ade Agunadeji playing right now, a rookie, a 5th-round pick out of Notre Dame. I can't get pressure on the quarterback. So it's a gamble. It's a gamble that I think you will screw up before I give you an opening. And you see it work against Zach Wilson, a quarterback for the New York Jets who can't make a decision. Tua Tagovailoa worked to a certain extent against them. They held him back a little bit. You know who it didn't work against? He tossed 5 touchdown passes against the Falcons. Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You know, you can't do that against the upper tier of quarterbacks, but there's not a ton of those out there. There's just not. So basically, it's you don't trust your personnel, so you've got to trust that they can hold long enough. Not hold, but the bend but don't break philosophy. And hopefully the other team's going to make a mistake. And it worked. It worked against the Dolphins. Appreciate the question, Dave.
Yeah, and that's one reason also with Tua. I mean, it's almost the Teddy Bridgewater syndrome where like the numbers look good, but how many throws were 15 plus yards? The big time throws, I think, is they're categorized by Pro Football Focus. And you got to hit those in the NFL to make some explosive plays down the field and beat some coverages. So it'll be interesting. We want to also, before we get on out of here, talk about Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. I was just scrolling back up to get Ray. Ray, hopefully you're still here. Because it crossed my mind watching him, and not just because he's been struggling this year, or maybe that I think part of the reason he has been struggling this year is because there's not a ton of time to throw, which doesn't factor well for the wide receivers. The long throw to Russell Gage, I see a shot of, and I haven't gone back and watched it over and over, but the first thing I do is I see Matt Ryan high five 2 tight ends after that throw. So they're in max protect on something like that. So how do they get beat? How do they get beat by a guy down the middle like that in max protect? That's a different question. Good. Ray, so let's go through this a little bit because I understand, and I'm not advocating for it yet. But I asked Nick yesterday, I said, Nick, if I've got a receiver, 27 years old, top 10 in yardage, making 11 to 12 million, what could I get for him? And he's under control for another year. He's under control for another year. What could I get for him on the open market in a trade? So, and Ray, this would be a draft type of trade. This would be a building for the future type of trade. Mm-hmm. You don't get better today by trading Calvin Ridley. No way.
No.
So the trade deadline is next week.
Yep, it's coming up.
What happened this year?
I think it's November 2nd.
What might you get in reserve? What might you get in return?
I think Calvin Ridley, given how good he's been, and the league looking at wide receivers, If I was the Falcons, I wouldn't want anything less than 2 seconds. I know that he is older, but he's also a style of receiver where you'd assume his game would age well because he is a twitchy receiver, and he's really good at getting separation, and he can play Z and slot fairly well. And with quarterbacks that win in the grass versus the air, you need those kind of guys. A lot of offenses need those kind of guys. So I think that 2 seconds is what I'd be looking for. Maybe you could get a second and like a conditional 2023 pick based on what he's doing, if he signs an extension or his team success. I'm a big fan of the conditional trades. But if the Falcons' wheels are starting to fall off, he's not what you're looking for offensive scheme wise. Like maybe with this offense, you're looking for guys who separate in the air more than on the turf. Maybe you could do a swap with the Broncos, and we'll send you Tim Patrick in a second for Calvin Ridley, just for the styles of offenses that they're running right now. But it is an interesting question, and I was very disappointed in him in this last game as well. Looking a little bit soft out there, had that fumble as well as I recall, which was a big play. Didn't end up losing them the game, but not great. So he's probably worth 2 2s or a 2 and a 3.
And a 2-2 should be worth a first, right?
It depends on where the 2s are.
Yeah.
Like if you're getting it from a playoff team,
if you're looking at somebody at the back end of the first round. So my argument for making a move like this would go out the window right now because the Falcons have won 3 out of 4 games and really should be 4 in a row. Yeah. The Falcons are 1-4-2, and there was a comment in here earlier that says the Falcons should be 4-2. Coaching lost that game. Maybe. And what I love about Arthur Smith is he owned that. He said, I was pissed at myself for how I ran the end of that game. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. Hopefully I don't make the same mistakes twice. Next week he goes out and goes for the jugular against the Jets. So maybe, but also give him credit because this team doesn't win 3 out of 4 games without an improvement in the coaching staff, Arthur Smith, Dean Pease, etc. So right now the Falcons are in a playoff hunt. The one thing you always forget is how bad some of the other teams can be. After week 1, you're looking at the division and thinking Saints, there's 0-2, Bucks, there's 0-2, Panthers, there's 0-2. They start off. Well, now it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Falcons could go 2-0 against the Saints and the Panthers, maybe 3-1. You've already played the Buccaneers once, even a 3-2 with that, and you've got a winning record.
Yeah.
So you don't give up a player like Calvin Ridley like that when you're going for the playoffs. So part of my thought on this is if you're out of the playoffs, and the reason why I'm thinking Calvin Ridley is Calvin Ridley is an asset. You look at tradable assets. What do you have? What can you get in return to build for the future? He is an asset. He's under control. Now, my question on this, Nick, and I still haven't been able to find it because it doesn't make any sense to me, are all guaranteed contracts, even if it's not a signing bonus, because they picked up his option. And I look at Spot Rack and it says he would carry a dead cap of his guarantee. That doesn't make any sense to me. The dead cap is to go against future payments that you've already made. So if he's on $11 million next year, where they pick up his option, and they already have, it's guaranteed, fully guaranteed. But I trade him to the Cowboys and they pick up his salary, then I haven't paid him any future money. So why would that be against my cap?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll have to ask my salary cap guy to see how that works. I don't know if it's something where when the team picks up the option, they pay him that immediately, and then it's only accounting wise that it's you see it on that future cap. Like maybe the Falcons have already paid him that money, but just for where it goes, it would go on that season and be dead cap against him already. I'm not sure exactly how the finances work for that and how that would work with the trade.
Going back to if you can't get cap relief from him and he counts against your cap anyway, then it absolutely makes 0 sense. But it doesn't make any sense to me that you wouldn't get cap relief from a guy that you're not paying or you haven't paid. Not that you're not paying, but you haven't paid. If somebody else is picking up that money, then it shouldn't count against my cap. But we need to clarify that one.
Yeah, and Jeremy giving me a hard time here. Nick has a cap guy. I have 2 cap guys. Nick Cahorte is one. He's very good on Twitter. Probably the best Nick K on Twitter, I always say. And Bob Morris at Mile High Huddle is also a really good cap guy.
But Ray says, how many players bust out in the draft? It's not worth it. So that was my second point on this, Ray, was he's under contract for 1 more year. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have to give him a second contract. Now, Calvin Ridley's not a young receiver.
No.
He was a double fullback, came into the league at 23 years old. He was 20 in high school. Meanwhile, Kyle Pitts is reporting to camp as an Atlanta Falcon at 20. There's a world of difference here. So he turns 27 in a couple of weeks. Through his 1-year option next year, he'll be 28. And now he's got one contract left in him. From that 20, he'll turn 29 that year. From 29 to 32, he's going to look for a 3 or 4 year deal at 15 per. So can I get better if I have $12 million extra dollars next year plugging other holes? Can I get better by taking some of that money and putting it in the defensive backfield, or maybe getting another defensive lineman next to, or getting a $6 million a year right tackle and defensive tackle? Can I get better that way? Plus, oh yeah, by the way, I've got another first-round pick. So
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that start going into my mind, because is Calvin Ridley, forget contracts right now, who's your number one receiver for the next 5 years with the Atlanta Falcons?
Cordell Patterson, my guy. No, it's Kyle Pitts for sure. But you need in today's NFL.
No, who is your number one receiver? Pass catcher, 5 years.
It's Kyle Pitts.
It's Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Kyle Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
So do you pay Calvin Ridley number one money to be the second guy when you know you're going to, and frankly, this offense is predicated on running the ball, double tight ends, et cetera, et cetera. So you're not going to get as many targets. So the wide receiver position is a little bit devalued here. So you risk losing Calvin Ridley next year for nothing, a compensatory pick, or you could pick up a first rounder, get $11 million back in salary cap and pump that into your defensive backfield.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes an option to me that becomes really intriguing. Now, I'm not saying do it, and right now I'd say definitely not, because the Falcons are playing well and there's still playoffs. Yeah. Playoffs are in the horizon. You don't trade away one of your best players when you're on a run like this, when you're as thin as the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah,
but
especially
if I'm Terry Fontenot, it's crossing my mind.
Yeah, and like we kind of mentioned earlier, does he fit what you want to do stylistically? Because you are going to have to pay a big contract. There will be demand for him. Are you looking for that, guy who can win quick hitters, route running, inside-outside versatility that would probably be best featured in a team that uses a lot of 11 personnel, where you can get him in the slot on some reps and do some slot fade work, or give him both directions to work with? That's one of the big advantages of the slot. You don't have the sideline as a defender. So it's definitely a question worth asking. Mm-hmm. Being where the Falcons are at wide receiver right now, it is hard for me, and where Matt Ryan is at his career, it is hard for me to advocate getting rid of good players at the pass catching position.
And right now, I don't think you can.
No.
You can't. If this team had fallen off, the New York Jets finish that comeback. No, you lose that game.
Yep.
You don't stamp on the neck of the Dolphins, and they make that comeback, and then I'm like, all right, it's time to be sellers. But right now, you're not a seller. And for the record, I don't trade Calvin Ridley right now either. No. I don't. Not the way the Falcons are playing right now. Not with Russell Gage having one game under his belt coming back from injury. They're way too thin at wide receiver.
Yeah.
But when I'm looking at ways, if this becomes a rebuild, does it make sense? And could it happen next year? And could it happen going into next year? Maybe you pick up a second round receiver with one. You get two second rounds for him. Maybe you draft 2 second rounders. And by the way, I've got $11 million left to play with for a team that desperately needs it.
Yeah, it's for me. I agree with you 100% on everything you're saying there. I'm probably not trading him unless somebody blows me away. And you guys are sellers after losing this next game, which hopefully won't be the case. But it's more for the offseason kind of question, where you can give yourself a little bit of cap flexibility and draft pick flexibility for a team that's drastically changing what it's doing offensive scheme wise and needing a shot in the arm on the defensive side of the ball. I probably approach, assuming the rest of the season goes well, I probably approach Ridley first with a contract and see what we're looking for there, what his market is like, what he thinks his market is like. And if we can get something that works out for both sides, both not only the raw numbers, but also structure, because this team's going to need some help structure-wise with how they are handling the cap, then I'd probably bring him back. He's not a receiver that's totally predicated on speed. He's not one that's this big body guy. Doesn't have a history of injuries. I know he's a little older, but I think that.
But he's not old. He's gonna have one more contract in him. He's got for his next contract he should be good for 3 years.
Yep. And I
Before
also
there's a
like
drop off, when he starts hitting 31, 32 years old.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also really like pairing a rookie contract with a second contract, and then you just kind of have that guy in time replace. So when the Kyle Pitts is time to pay, you want to coincide Kyle Pitts getting paid with Calvin Ridley's second deal being finished or being able to get out of it. So you have that flexibility just to lead into the next one. So if they lose and somebody's offering you 2 seconds, and you're not really looking for stylistically what Calvin Ridley brings, I'm definitely all ears. But right now,
Yeah, and that becomes a question too. Is does he fit in this scheme? Yeah, you can find a scheme. You can if you can't find a way to use Calvin Ridley, it's your fault, not the scheme's fault. Unless as long as he's being Calvin Ridley, as long as he's not off the boil for some reason.
Yep. Or if you think that what he brings is not worth it, the big contract that he's probably getting on another team. That's probably the boilerplate.
You start opening negotiations next year for his extension and start feeling out. And when he comes back and says, I want 5 years, 75 million, you say, okay, who wants Calvin Ridley?
Yep. Yeah, not great.
But I know you've got to go. We've been here 35 minutes. That went on a little longer than I was expecting.
Okay. It always does.
Just to review, we hit on some Kyle Pitts, some Dion Jones, Jason Spriggs, Sam Darnold. What we didn't talk about was that Carolina defense, which I do want to talk about. So I'm going to let you get going. And I think we're at about our highest number of viewers right now. So I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer with this crowd. If that's okay with you, I'll let you go.
Yep. Nope. Sounds great. Have a good one, guys. And I'll see most of you guys tomorrow for Broncos for breakfast. And go Braves.
Thanks, Nick. All right. So that was Nick Kendall. Nick's great. I really appreciate him doing this with us and give us an outside perspective on things. I wanted to hit on some of the comments on here. Chaz Andrews comes in on Facebook and says, this game versus the Panthers could be a turning point in the season. I still don't like how our defense can't hold leads, but our team looks very promising if our defense can stay where they are, which is middle of the pack. Middle of the pack is a vast improvement, Chaz, which is nice. And part of that is ball control on offense. The offense has been playing a lot better. And I also like, again, I mentioned this earlier, how Arthur Smith took ownership of that game against the Redskins. I knew I was going to do it against Washington, where they got too conservative. Cordero Patterson's not on the field. Run, punt, run, punt. Now you're behind after having a 2-score lead. And they've made up for it. And we've seen that twice now. We've seen that two games in a row where they've gone to Kyle Pitts to move the chain, set up a game-winning field goal, or to kill the game against the Jets. So the one thing I'm looking at in this game that scares me a little bit about Carolina is that defense. Their defense is still pretty good. Where they've been really good. They've only given up, I think, over 207 yards once. That was one time. Everything else has been under 200. They've got 207. They've got 350, and everything else has been under 200. That's really, really good defense. Now, on the flip side of that, they've been gashed in the running game at times on some of these. So with Mike Davis and Cordero Patterson, maybe throwing some Wayne Gallman, I think the Falcons need to establish the line of scrimmage a little bit more and run the ball to set up that play action, to set up Calvin Ridley, to set up Kyle Pitts, and take care of that. But you're not going to be able to go out there. If the Falcons are going out there and throwing the ball 40, 45 times, I don't like the way that can go. Let me hit some of these. Here real quick. Jetty comes in and asks a question. Off topic, are undrafted free agents leftovers from the draft who were not picked? How does a college graduate enter? Is he invited? Are all graduates eligible, etc.? So an undrafted free agent is someone who is eligible for the draft, who has renounced their eligibility. Unfortunately, the NFL doesn't do it the same way as MLB. In MLB, everybody's eligible. It's $1 billion business. You're eligible for the draft. I can draft you, and it's up for me to talk you out of giving up school, coming out and making you an offer to say, I don't want to go back to college. That's $1 billion industry. The NFL and their unholy coalition with the NCAA, they make the kids say, okay, I don't know if you even want me or not, but I'm going to give up college. Well, that's ridiculous. So if you've graduated out or if you no longer have any eligibility, or you have renounced your eligibility, you are now eligible for the NFL. If you do not get drafted, you are free to have your agent negotiate with 32 teams, and sometimes it's a better fit for you than to get drafted in the 7th round. Sometimes it can be a better fit for you to sign as an undrafted free agent with someone, because then you can pick your team of the ones that are looking for you. If you were right there on the bubble of being drafted, sometimes being able to choose, I'm a running back, these guys don't have one, I'm going to sign with them. I'm a wide receiver, they just had 2 get hurt in OTAs, I'm going to sign with them. So sometimes that can actually be better for them. So prediction, home game. It's about a pick 'em. It's a 2.5-point game for the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is 3 in a row they've been favored, which is, for the Falcons team after watching the first couple games, it's encouraging. But they've earned it. They've absolutely earned it. They're playing well. The offensive line is playing better. The defense, like I said, is middle of the pack. It's like, oh, this is an average defense. Well, average is a hell of a lot better than god-awful, which is what we've seen the last several years. So that's a big improvement. Some of the rookies coming in playing. Jalen Mayfield's playing a little bit better. We all know about Kyle Pitts. Ade Ogundeji is listed as a starter at outside linebacker, defensive end. So the young guys who they brought along a little slowly are starting to really make an impact now. So I do like the Falcons in this one at home at Mercedes-Benz to pour a little bit more on Carolina, who has lost 4 in a row. I trust Dean Pease more than I trust Sam Darnold with the football. So I think the Falcons here, I think we're going to see some points, though, somewhere in the 27-24 range, right in there. I wouldn't want to take the over. I wouldn't want to bet on this game at all. I don't like it. The lines seem about right to me for the over-under and for the line with the Falcons. So I wouldn't want to bet on this one, but I will take the Falcons. We'll call it 27-24. Appreciate y'all being here. Tell your friends. We're here every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern in Atlanta to talk Falcons, and we do lots of other things across the webosphere. So if you follow me at Twitter at Scout Kennedy, you can see there. You'll get a pretty good idea of what we're going to do between the Broncos for Breakfast shows and all Falcons that we do at 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. But we do this for you, and I'm going to answer this question real quick before we get out of here from Mo. How are you liking Richie Grant? Richie Grant, the safety, 2nd-round pick out of UCF, is a player that I really, really liked at the Senior Bowl. But what I saw at the Senior Bowl was basically all physical. So it was, can he cover? Yes, he can. Can he hit? Yes, he can. How's he read defense, anticipate, and football instincts? I don't know. You can't tell that as much at the Senior Bowl in that setting. So from what I've seen, that has taken a little bit longer for him to come around on. But I love all the physical abilities, and I like the fact they didn't just throw him out there to the Wolves. They got a couple of journeyman veterans to play safety, so he didn't have to go in and get torched early and hurt his confidence. Not that you're going to hurt that kid's confidence. It's one of the things I love about him. But I like Richie Grant. I think he's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start, but I think by the end of the season he should be about where we were expecting. So I was a big fan, and Lance was wanting him desperately to come to the Broncos. Lance might have been at the Senior Bowl too. Richie looked really good down there. I know Mile High Huddle had at least one person down there. So Richie I like that pick, and I also like the fact that they were able to get Drew Dahlman out of it. And that trade down with the Broncos, where they traded up to take running back Javonte Williams, Falcons picked up another 4th rounder, and they used that to take Drew Dahlman, who's listed as a backup at 3 positions on the offensive line. So that was a good piece of business by general manager Terry Fontenot, getting a potential starter down the line and a good reserve right now with another 4th-round pick in Drew Dahlman, and getting a starting caliber safety that you desperately needed out of the draft in Richie Grant. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't see any ladies, but just in case, I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get out of here, and we'll be back on tonight. What is today? Wednesday on Mile High Huddle. I'll be working the 1s and 2s for Mile High Huddle and Chad and Zach, and then we'll be back at Broncos for Breakfast on Mile High Huddle tomorrow morning at 9:30 Eastern time for those of you watching. Until next time, though, appreciate you being here, and we'll see you soon.